That was Ethan Hawke.
Where?
The assistant. Miles' assistant. Edward Norton's assistant.
Yeah.
I thought it was, but then no one reacted. And I was like, okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your new favorite pop culture YouTube channel where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you've been warned. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
Lock the doors.
Stay in your rooms.
Everyone
Is in danger.
All right. When's the murder mystery start?
I loved this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to play the better or worse game. I don't think
No.
it doesn't do any
No.
buddy or anything.
I think you're allowed to have a preference. My husband said he liked it a lot. He wants to watch it more times. He liked it a lot, but he prefers the vibe of Knives Out. The cozy nature of it.
Knives Out is a stealth Thanksgiving movie.
Exactly.
It's got an autumnal color palette, and it just feels...
Chris Evans is wearing all those sweaters.
It's what Pop Culture Happy Hour calls the cozy murder mystery.
It's great.
And it is more properly a whodunit. Extremely good.
Yeah.
Go see it in theaters if you can.
It's out for
only,
3 more days.
For 3 more days. I'm wondering if they're going to keep it. I don't know if they can.
Theaters? Yeah.
It's doing really well.
Yeah.
And I love that it's going to be on Netflix in a month.
Yeah.
That is, but granted, I would probably buy a ticket and go see it again if it weren't.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, the second it's over, I'm like, okay, I need to go back and watch that again.
I really want to watch it again.
I think my favorite thing about it in the non-spoiler section is how much it felt like a Knives Out movie, but it does not feel anything like Knives Out.
Yeah, it's not. I think that's what's so interesting and fascinating and nice about making the franchise hinge around Benoit Blanc, because it's sort of in that sense like the Poirot thing, where it's just a different mystery every time.
But I'm saying, it feels like they belong in the same universe, but it doesn't feel like trying to recreate magic. Mm-hmm. This feels like a summer movie in the way that feels like a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
And, shipping them off to Greece is it is such a brilliant idea. And it's like tackling it has a similar commentary without being a repeat.
Yeah.
Of what Knives Out was doing. And I really like that. The cast is an embarrassment of riches.
I mean, yeah.
I kind of liked, because when they said I remember when they announced it, I'm like, oh man, those are all good people, but they weren't what I would consider obvious choices.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a couple more movie stars in the first movie.
Sure.
Whereas in this one, it's not so much that they are or aren't movie stars. The actors feel of the caliber.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too, is Kate Hudson has been soft retired for a while. And then Kathryn Hahn until recently has only been a sidekick or a character actress. Watch How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, because they're in it together. And so it's you're totally right. And there's also Madeline Klein is on a Netflix show. It's very interesting. You're totally right that they're but Edward Norton has been nominated for Oscars and stuff. So it's very an interesting mix. I like
but
it.
He's all like I said, they can all hold a candle to the Knives Out predecessors. Yeah. But like I said, there was something, to use the word again, movie star-esque about the first one, where this one, I don't know. I think they're deserving of the acclaim, but it's also an interesting use of a lot of them. It was an interesting use of Kathryn Hahn, because you would think that she would be more daffy. And she brings this really interesting seriousness.
She's very shrewd, her character.
Yeah, and there were moments where in the beginning I was sort of like, I don't know that this is how I would have done this.
Yeah.
But then there's just, and I think it's in the trailer, but she has this one look, this like glare in the movie that is just simmering. Like it could strip paint.
Yeah.
And I just, it makes you realize that there's so much more there.
Because that didn't even touch on Jessica Hennick or Janelle Monáe or Leslie Odom Jr.
Jessica Hennick was weird to me. I think she was fantastic in everything she does.
Yeah.
And again, it's in the trailer, but when she like almost knocks the statue off and then like catches it and all that, like that was very good. But she felt there was something. She was one of the ones that I felt
she was a little half baked.
This was very well received at Sundance.
That's too long ago. Cannes or Venice, I think.
One of the film festivals. It was extremely well received, and there was this like campaign that was saying it was better than the first one. All this stuff. I don't think that that's.
It's also so hard when something like Knives Out like flashes like so hot like it did, because you're also, while I don't think this is worse by any stretch of the imagination, you're never going to catch that original lightning in a bottle
you're
again.
Expecting it.
Exactly. So it's like, this movie is excellent and I like it so much, but it's like, it's never going to give you the same feeling that you got when you watched that.
So what I was getting at was I was going into this with that in mind. And so I did sit down in the theater being like, okay.
Prove it.
Wow me. Come on. And the first 30 minutes or so, 30 to 40 minutes or so, it's good. Like, I was entertained. But there was something in the back of my mind that was thinking, I'm like, I mean, this isn't better. Like,
I literally, me too. I literally, the whole, like, probably half hour, 40 minutes, I was sitting there being like, this is really like a slow burn. Like, what are we
it was just
doing?
plot, and it was doing that thing that good whodunits, murder mysteries or thrillers or whatever do, where I felt like I was only half following. I was like, I don't understand what's happening.
It made me feel like a real dum-dum. I was like, I'm picking up on stuff, but I think I'm picking up too much stuff.
Or I was like, am I looking too hard?
Yeah.
Like what? Like I felt like I was doing something wrong. And then, much like Knives Out, at the like 1/4 mark, he introduces an element that changes the entire movie.
Yeah.
And so what I started to say at the top was, for me, this isn't a whodunit, it's a what is it?
Yeah.
Because you don't even know what the crime is.
Yeah.
And there's multiple things happening. And
well, there's like but there also is a whodunit at the center of the what is it?
There were all of these little moments that I noticed where, like, say there were 10 Easter eggs, and it's like, I noticed 8 of them.
Yeah.
But I was very like, well, that was weird. Why was that weird?
Well, and I mentioned it when we were talking about it a little last night, and I was, at one point, Janelle Monáe kind of, like, stumbles away, and I was like, is she drunk? I was like, that's weird. And then it does come back full circle later, but at the first time, you're just sort of like, huh.
My favorite thing about that is when you're watching it, you're like, is she suddenly drunk? That doesn't seem right. Yeah. And then the reveal is that, yes, she's suddenly drunk.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because she's been
exactly what you thought.
Because she's been pounding Jared Leto's hard kombucha. There was also a literal glass onion, which I enjoyed.
Okay, the metaphor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The metaphor, I didn't even realize how funny that was. Because the whole thing about onions having layers, it's like there's more than meets the eye. But if it's glass...
Yeah. It's all right there.
There's nothing inside.
It's so funny. But I did...
And it is very stupid when you get to...
Because I mentioned that as well. I was like, I thought the glass onion was going to be like a sister metaphor to the donut hole in the donut hole from the first one. But then there just was a literal glass onion the minute they arrive in Greece. And I was like, oh, okay.
They're like twice in the movie, they're in this like living room, and there's all of these beautiful contrived glass sculptures, and the camera's going around them, and they're contorting everything through the reflections, and it's very sort of like, you're like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And
it was very funny.
It's very effective. And I will say that this movie is extremely funny, but it is not funny in a setup punchline way.
It's not jokes.
No.
It's vibes. Yeah.
It's largely situational. And why I think that I will really love this one equally is because I think so much of it is repeat. I'm still noticing
in Knives
things
Out.
in Knives Out. Like, I cannot believe how different scenes are when characters are remembering things. Like in Knives Out, like when Chris Evans leaves, when it's from his father's perspective, he touches the grandmother, like to say goodbye. But then when it's, I forget the other perspective, he just storms out and doesn't even acknowledge her. And there's just little things like that.
Even the, like, Christopher Plummer's portrait is different every time you see it.
Well, the first thing that Benoit does when Marta walks up is look at her shoe.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it's there.
Oh,
like,
it's there. It's all there.
And so that's one of the things that I sort of can't wait to go back and watch with this one, is because there's a scene where a character is shot and Benoit is crying.
Yeah.
And I was like,
so touched.
I was like, oh my God, I didn't
Especially
realize
because
he was that.
The implication is that they've known each other for like 72 hours.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe he was that invested in her. And then when we get to that part, he's literally putting Tabasco in his eyes.
No, wait, it wasn't Tabasco.
Well,
it was, whose hot sauce was it?
Jeremy Renner's.
Jeremy Renner's hot sauce. It was called Renning Hot.
Edward Norton is Miles Braun, and he's a billionaire who owns some tech company who's an idiot. But people don't. There were so many timely things.
Topical before they even could have had any idea how topical it would have been. Yeah.
These people are all friends of his that they met later in life, though. They met like in their 30s, they said.
I think the rest of them met in their 20s. They knew each other from like school and stuff. But then he came in when they were all kind of washed up in their 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Through Andy, through Janelle Monáe.
Yeah.
She brought him in.
But through his sort of...
Just like magnetism, it seems.
I guess his charisma, he empowered
Perhaps
them.
some emerald mine money?
He empowered them to be
like the best
versions of themselves. And so for a hot minute, that was one of the things I was a little bit hung up on, where I was like, what are the odds of like this happening? And then I started thinking about actual public figures.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess a tech billionaire could just randomly start dating a pop star.
Look, I'm very passionate about the acting talents of most of the Coppola kids, but like, because they're Coppola kids.
And so anyways, they all became successful in their own right. And so they had this connection.
And they would meet up at a bar also called the Glass Onion.
Mm-hmm. So they were all successful in their own right, in their own arenas. And every year they would sort of re-meet and have like...
a vacation.
Yeah. But they all hated each other? Or hated him?
No. At first they did, until he started helping them all. And then he was wrapped in the fold completely. What kind of fractured the whole thing is when he cut Andy out of the company.
So he pulled a Social Network.
Because he's developed this like clean energy, but it's also
clean with a K,
fully combustible hydrogen or hydrogen. And so it'll just explode.
So he's trying to rush this. He's trying to like push
there's not
it
been
out.
enough testing and stuff. And she called him on it, and she was like, I absolutely cannot sign off on this stuff. And so he basically cut her completely out, and there was a trial and everything, and they all sided with him because he had the money.
Yeah, they felt devoted to him, or
owed him.
So what the mystery ends up being, because they were all meeting there for like for fun, like mystery, but it turns out that Andy is dead and had a twin sister, Helen.
She was the only one that knew Andy was dead. Yeah.
And she got the invitation?
No, the invitation arrived at Andy's house.
Yeah.
And so she just smashed it open.
And so she hired, which is, it's presented so funny too, because it's presented that way. Like it shows all of them receiving the invitation and opening up, and then it cuts to her just like staring at it and smashing it.
Yeah.
And it like makes sense what we know of the character, what we assume is the character when we're watching it, but then it makes even more sense when we watch it the second time.
Yeah.
And so she basically hires Benoit to figure out what happened to her sister.
Mhm.
And in that, they come up with the idea together that she's going to impersonate her sister in an attempt to suss out
Who actually
the killer.
killed her, yeah.
Because seemingly
Which one of the shitheads?
someone on that island killed her.
Yeah.
And then when she shows up,
Mhm.
did they know she had a sister? They had to have. I can't remember if they covered that.
I don't remember either. I don't think so,
I really
though.
should have seen it again.
Well, so then she and Benoit basically, like, sort of team up to play Clue, essentially. She even so much as, like, writes the little, like, in her notebook, and as they're going through stuff, it turns out everybody had motive and opportunity to do it, to kill Andy. And it's just so interesting, and they find out that the reason she got killed is that apparently the smoking gun in the trial was this napkin where, like, he wrote the thing about the clean energy on the napkin. But Andy had the original one. She just didn't know where it was. And then she got real mad and ripped all her bookcases down and it fell out of a book. So she took a picture that she had it. And then they're trying to determine who was the one that actually, like, went and murdered her. So good. It was so good. It was just so good. And then in between, they're having what appear to be kind of all these interpersonal issues where, like, Catherine Hahn and Leslie Odom Jr. are, like,
were you getting chemistry from them? There was something going on. He felt underutilized.
Yes, yeah.
For me.
I frequently feel that way about him. I think he's so talented, and I think he kind of falls into that category that I have the hugest problem with, where he's too hot to get taken seriously as an actor. He's so hot. It's ridiculous.
I loved the character drama kind of at the center of this, because they sort of ended up clustered together frequently. And then there is this fantastic performance from Kate Hudson.
Oh my God.
I think she could potentially get a supporting actress nomination.
I mean, I would not be surprised or mad about it. She's so funny in this role. And I think she is also a lot more talented than people give her credit for, because she never really got to do like straight up dramas. Like, you know,
I was never a huge fan of hers, and I didn't dislike her, but she was one of those that she definitely is in things. Like, she's definitely done stuff, but this felt a little bit like, I don't know if it's an encore or like a much, like an overdue sort of like brava, like moment performance. The movie was just gorgeous. Like, everything was really interesting to look at, and obviously setting it in Greece, and all of the clothes.
And
I mean,
all of his stupid art. He just had so much art.
But like, as the movie went on, it got uglier.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Like, and I don't know if they were swapping things out.
No, it's like we got deeper in the house as we went to, but there was
the more time you're there, the worse it gets, and you're like, oh, this is terrible.
Well, it's because he doesn't have any it's, you know what, actually, I'm going to bring up something and you're going to laugh your ass off. He's very like his character in The Italian Job. He has so much money and no imagination. He just was like buying shit because it was expensive. There's a fucking Rothko in his house. Like, and that's not even to mention the actual Mona Lisa that he like borrowed from the Louvre. Because of COVID.
Strong-armed it out from the Louvre. The stupid protective casing. It has like a hair trigger protective casing. And there's a scene where Dave Bautista's phone is like going off, and every time it dings, the case goes whoomp.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so funny. There's also a moment in it that I think is an homage to the original Clue.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
Well, because the first one was getting compared to the 80s Clue movie, obviously from the like off-kilter,
the house
funny
vibes, yeah.
But it's a scene where because remember he was planning on having a murder mystery, so he's scheduled for the lights to go out.
That's
but then the actual murder happens, the actual mystery starts, and he's like, "Oh shit, I forgot!"
Yeah.
And he knows it's about to happen because there's this dong on the island. It actually didn't go off as much as I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Because it only goes off like 4 times, and I was like, we needed 12.
Yeah, we needed more. But it's also hilariously the dong voice is provided by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
It's this because he takes their phones away or something like that. Like there's not clocks or something. I don't remember. So every hour there's this dong. So then all the lights go out, and they're like scattered because, of course, shit just went down. And there's a lighthouse spinning around, and it sort of like illuminates and cloaks them in various ways. And I think it's a direct homage to that scene in Clue where the lights go out and the camera sort of like cuts to each one of them,
like
partially
in shadow.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. Where were you with Janelle Monáe? Did you like?
I liked her. I think she's a pretty great actress.
So I love Janelle Monáe.
Yeah, well, the music.
She absolutely holds her own. I think Helen, I think I bought Andy a bit more than I bought Helen.
Janelle Monáe is good at putting on rich bitch.
But I don't think that she embarrasses herself.
No, not at all. And also, it's like, I mean, everybody in this movie is a gifted actor. But, like, I also think pairing her with Daniel Craig the majority of the time was really smart because he is also very good, but I feel like he's not an intimidating actor.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really good. I mean, she was really good in Hidden Figures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every now and then that when the one of them is, like, telling her to have a little bit of shame and she just goes, I will not. And, like, looks at it's hilarious. That's such a good delivery. Like, she's fantastic.
For me, well, Daniel Craig, it goes without saying, because he's playing the same character and it does feel the same, but also more. Mm-hmm. Because I like that that Benoit is sort of, it's not that he himself is an idiot.
No.
Because he's not. He's very smart, but
he can be blinded by certain things.
It's a very, very interesting quality. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm hungover. I am fighting for my life right now.
I feel great, actually.
Good for you. There's just something about it. This goes back to the Knives Out. It makes no sense. It compels me though.
Yeah.
And I love that he's sort of, unless like if he doesn't have a mystery, he's sort of a wash.
Okay, yes, because I loved that scene. He has like what were they even doing? They were playing a game or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has this like Zoom because this takes place like peak pandemic, and so he has this Zoom that's apparently like weekly with R.I.P. Stephen Sondheim and Angela Lansbury, and then also Natasha Lyonne and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Hilarious. Loved all of that. And so that's when he gets a knock at the door that he's like received something, like, and there's a woman there to give it to him. And then we find out later that who answered the door and told him he had received a package is Hugh Grant, presumably his live-in boyfriend. And he is absolutely making sourdough bread at the time. And I just thought all of that was so perfect. I loved every single second of that.
Edward Norton was also
oh my God.
really good. I had mentioned Jessica Henwick. I feel like she didn't get enough. I think she needed a little bit more.
Yeah, Peg.
Madeline Klein was so weird. Mm-hmm. And so, because she ends up being a little bit of a linchpin. She's sort of like an Yvette character.
Sure. I'll give you that.
Where she ends up playing a more of a role than you think she's going to. Yeah. But there's also this brilliant scene because she seems terrible. Because Dave Bautista's terrible.
Oh my God.
He's like a men's rights.
There was that one where, and then, after the set piece with him and Catherine Hahn's character is like, I can't be found here with a men's rights activist.
I liked that their friendship it seemed like it was secret.
Well, so what I think happened is that because he got his start on Twitch, but then he got banned from Twitch for being like racist and inflammatory. Mm-hmm. And so he's only been actively terrible since Miles set him up on YouTube.
Okay.
Like, I feel like when they first met, he wasn't like that, but he's like leaning into that now.
But there's this really brilliant scene because, like I said, you think whiskey's going to be like awful. And she has this scene with Janelle Monáe where you find out that she's actually really sweet and kind of bright. And she's just sort of like grabbing onto coattails. Like,
because she has that one line where she's like, I just like, he wants me to be on the YouTube like a little bit more, but like, I don't know, all his men's rights stuff. And what if I want to go into politics? And I think Madeline Klein is so adorable. The Outer Banks is it's a show, but she's really good on it. Noah Segan is back as Daryl, spelled Derol.
And I kept waiting. He's like Kato Kalin type.
Kind of, yeah.
And I kept waiting for there to be something like a pivotal moment, and there's not. And I just sort of love that he's this weird, not even red herring, but kind of like, because I love the scene when Janelle is searching the house.
Yeah. And she just bursts in his room.
She forgets that he's there, and she like bursts in his room, and he's just like, "Oh hey," and she's like,
so funny. Well, and then he and Benoit are just smoking together at the end while the entire place goes up in flames.
The Mona Lisa payoff. There was like 7 or 8 things in this movie that they threaten you with very blatantly.
Yep.
Like that Chekhov puts that gun on the table
right there in front of you.
And it's not until seconds before where you're like, oh, the thing's gonna happen.
Oh my god. I also loved too, like when Helen just starts breaking all of the glass sculptures, and then Birdie and Claire they're like, yeah, okay, all right. And then they start doing it too. It's so funny to me. And then we didn't actually like talk about it. This is getting into that Chris Farley character on fucking SNL, but when he like starts to set up the murder mystery and Benoit just immediately is like, it was this for this reason. Okay, bye. And he's so butthurt because he's
so angry
because he had Gillian Flynn write it for him. So funny.
Oh, he said Gillian Flynn.
He said Gillian, yeah.
Which I was like, what a weird faux pas. Yeah. No, but it's not a faux pas because he's an idiot.
On purpose.
That is so funny. There are so many things in this movie where I was like, that was weird. Yeah. How did that slip through? And it was on purpose.
It's so funny.
I loved it. We're getting a third one for sure. I thought I had heard Netflix had ordered a fourth one, but
I mean, they might.
I would love 5 of these.
Yeah.
They don't have to be every 2 to 3 years. I think it could space out a little. I just don't know if Rian Johnson has it in him to top himself with a mystery 5 times in a row.
Do it. He's so good. I mean,
because that's another thing that I actually really love. Like, this gets my blood pumping because it's new IP.
Yeah,
it's not based on something.
Mm-hmm. It's a little based on like Agatha Christie,
inspired by because Benoit is very Hercule Poirot.
Hercule.
I didn't hate Death on the Nile. Sue me.
I didn't hate it. It's not very good. I didn't hate it.
I'm going to take a nap. I loved his little bathing suit. His little sailor suit.
It was like a little seersucker, like top and shorts. Yeah, you should definitely see it. You should definitely see it in the theater. If you can't see it in the theater, definitely.
And if you can't, it's going to be there on Christmas Day.
Definitely watch it on Christmas on Netflix. So good. Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, our website, soimwatching.com, Patreon, Cash App, Venmo, everything. Yeah. Let us know what you thought. Bye.